This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Thursday, the 12th day of August in the year 2021. I'm Gordon Mosley. Here's what we're tracking tonight. The Guyana Elections Commission today terminated the contracts of the Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, his Deputy Chief Elections Officer Roxanne Myers, and the Returning Officer for Region 4, Claremont Mingo. The three were terminated in keeping with the provisions of their contracts. They will be leaving the Commission with all of their benefits. When the Commission met today, the original motion seeking their dismissal was withdrawn, and the motion seeking the termination of their contracts was put to the Commission, and a vote was called. The three government-nominated commissioners who presented the motion voted for the terminations. The opposition-nominated commissioners abstained from the vote, and the chairman of the Elections Commission, retired Justice Claudette Singh, sided with the government commissioners and also voted for the terminations. APNU-AFC-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander said the contracts allow for termination without cause.
They have decided to terminate the contracts in keeping with the provisions of the contract, which provides for termination and payment in lieu of notice.
Okay, and could you explain the process
This
that
is
happened
termination. Today? There was a motion that was put, and there was clarification of the motion and voting on the motion.
And how did the vote go?
3 for, 3 abstentions, and the chairman ruling in favor of the 3 for. So you can say 4 for and 3 abstentions.
However, Alexander noted that in the case of the Chief Elections Officer, his contract calls for a cause to be given for the contract termination. He said that's an issue that Lowenfield and his attorneys will have to take up with the Elections Commission. Mr. Alexander also said the Commission will now have to move to replace the 3 officers, and he's not sure how soon that process will get underway and completed.
I think the Elections Commission has to move expeditiously. However, I have reservations as to whether we have sufficient time to meet the deadline for election.
Local government elections in Guyana are constitutionally due before the end of this year. Meanwhile, government-nominated Commissioner Says Gunraj spoke about today's decision, saying the decision was long overdue.
As you are aware, this nation has perhaps waited too long for this to happen, but it is finally there.
Earlier this week, Mr. Lowenfield withdrew a court matter that he had filed to block his dismissal from the Elections Commission. He made the change after the PP Civic nominated commissioners amended their motion for his dismissal, replacing summary dismissal with termination in keeping with the contracts, allowing for all of the benefits to be provided following termination. Lowenfield, Myers, and Mingo are currently before the courts facing various charges related to misconduct in public office and allegations of fraud related to last year's general elections. In all of the court matters, they have declared their innocence of the charges. More news coming up in just a moment.
What's our purpose? Together we rise. For our community, our customer, and our country. Our promises: strengthen our community, reliably connect our customers, innovate for all in our country. Together we rise.
Take your shot, take your shot, get back to your life. Take your shot, take your shot, take your shot, get back to your life.
A message from Republic Bank.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100.
rush.
Nobody's doing it big like Digicel this summer. Top up with $1,000 or more and collect the letters to spell the word RUSH for a chance to win one of 3 brand new Toyota Rush SUVs. Yes, you heard it right. 3 brand new Toyota Rush SUVs.
Driving style for the summer. Hey, Digicel Summer Rush.
Start topping up now.
Let GBTI make your dreams of owning a home a reality. Buy or build your home with us. Let us help you to completely outfit your home and make it move-in ready. Need to purchase land? We finance that too. Benefit from our 10% down payment and interest rates as low as 4.25%. Calculated on the reducing balance with up to 30 years to repay. Switch your mortgage to us and learn about benefiting from the equity in your home. Invest wisely. Apply online or call your branch to schedule an appointment. GBTI, we see Guyana through your eyes.
Welcome back. Hours after the Guyana Elections Commission by a majority vote terminated the contracts of the Chief Elections Officer, the Deputy Chief Elections Officer, and the Returning Officer for Region 4, GECOM in a statement explained that the terminations were provided for in the contracts of the officers. In a statement, the Elections Commission posited that although the officers had or held public statutory offices, they were not public, but rather contractual officers, and as a result, they have no security of tenure. GECOM said their respective contracts stipulated the terms by which they were bound. According to GECOM, the officers exercised the right to enter their respective contract willingly and voluntarily, and were therefore aware of the method of termination provided by their respective contracts, adding that it is trite law that not even a court of law can enforce a contract for personal services against an employer terminating the contract of an employee, since the proper relief for a breach in an employment contract for personal services lies in damages. In relation to the Chief Elections Officer, the Chair said Clause 9 of his contract stipulates that his services can be terminated by giving him 3 months' notice or payment in lieu of notice. And in the case of the Deputy Chief Elections Officer and the Returning Officer, their contracts stipulate that the Commission may at any time terminate their employment by giving 3 months' notice or payment in lieu of that notice. Accordingly, the release said the officers will be paid 3 months' salary inclusive of allowances under their respective contracts, as well as payment for the remaining days of their vacation leave, if any of those days remain. The GECOM chairman cast a deciding vote to terminate the 3 GECOM officers after the opposition-nominated commissioners abstained from the vote. Health matters to report now. In the wake of mounting protests by healthcare workers in Linden and other places, the Ministry of Health late last night announced that it is giving additional time for health workers and public transportation operators and conductors to comply with the vaccination order. In a late-night statement, the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, announced that healthcare workers and public transportation operators now have an additional 2 weeks to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Minister Anthony said the government has secured enough vaccines for the adult population. He said currently citizens have a choice of first and second dose AstraZeneca or Sinopharm vaccines and the first dose of Sputnik V. There has been a delay in the arrival of the second dose shots of Sputnik vaccines. Dr. Anthony said Pfizer vaccines will be available soon for children. The health minister said the vaccines are safe and effective, reminding that if someone is fully vaccinated, it will reduce that person's chances of infection, hospitalization, and death. The announcement by the health minister saw unvaccinated healthcare workers in Linden being allowed access to their workplace after 2 days of protests. Yesterday in Linden, the healthcare workers were supported by scores of citizens from the community who blocked the Mackenzie-Wisma Bridge for several hours. Let's tell you now that the Chief Medical Officer of Guyana, Dr. Narayan Singh, has advised that based on recommendations from the World Health Organization and the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, several categories of persons can be exempted from taking the COVID-19 vaccine. In a memo copy to the Minister of Health and other officials, Dr. Singh said that while the WHO and the CDC and other health authorities have advised that vaccination of breastfeeding mothers will not cause harm to the infant, the Ministry of Health will only be administering the vaccines to mothers who request them. He explained that mothers who do not wish to be vaccinated for the duration of the breastfeeding will be exempted. The memo with the exemption is coming at a time when more than half of the country's adult population has already taken at least one dose of one of the vaccines being offered in Guyana. Additionally, the chief medical officer pointed out that the health authorities have also advised that vaccination of pregnant women will not cause harm to the fetus. Consequently, the ministry will also be administering the vaccine to pregnant women who request the vaccine, while exempting those who wish not to take the vaccine during the duration of the pregnancy. Further, the memo stated that persons who were tested positive for COVID-19 can receive their vaccines 90 days from the date that person was tested positive for the virus, while individuals who received blood transfusions are eligible for the jab 2 weeks after being transfused. The chief medical officer also said patients with any clotting disorders such as hemophilia should be given clearance from their attending physician before receiving any of the vaccines. Persons with acute cardiac issues or acute cerebrovascular events cannot receive the vaccine until they have recovered and received clearance from their doctor. It is also advised that patients with an active infection should not receive the vaccine until they have fully recovered. It is further advised that patients receiving chemotherapy or dialysis should receive clearance from their doctors before being administered with one of the vaccines. Additionally, persons with sickle cell or epilepsy can receive the vaccine, but the date of their last encounter with an attack of the illness should be identified. Persons who fall within the exemption group and are in the public system will be tested regularly through the public system, the chief medical officer indicated. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony today said those nurses attached to the Linden Hospital who are being locked out of the hospital did not produce a PCR test result in order to gain access. The health minister explained that there is a clear guideline which now mandates health workers who are not vaccinated to produce a negative PCR test result. He said nurses who were vaccinated are being allowed to carry on with their duties.
Look, this thing is a public safety matter as well. So imagine if you're vaccinated or a patient who's unvaccinated come to the hospital and you have staff that are unvaccinated working with you. So it's something, it's ethical, it's moral, and we have to protect ourselves.
As we reported, the issue has sparked a protest in the mining town, with residents defending the nurses' choice to not take the vaccine. The health minister said his ministry is monitoring the situation in Linden and that he hopes good sense will prevail.
And I really do believe that with a little bit more education, that the healthcare workers who are reluctant would understand the importance and the need to get vaccinated. So we hope that this would happen sooner rather than later, and we continue to monitor to make sure that the services that we are delivering is not compromised.
Dr. Anthony made it clear that if health workers continue to refuse to take the vaccine, the health ministry will not be paying for any of those PCR tests. Additionally, he said there has been an uptake in the vaccination numbers, pointing out that on Tuesday more than 4,000 persons took the first dose of the vaccine.
So yesterday alone we did 4,930 vaccinations. Of those, 4,329 were persons receiving their first dose.
The government of Guyana has been trying to find new ways to deal with vaccine hesitancy across the country. This evening, the Guyana Revenue Authority is warning importers and other businesses that they could face the long arm of the law if they do not pass on the reduction in import charges to consumers. The GRA has given effect to President Irfan Ali's directive on the reduction of import charges to pre-pandemic levels in the calculation of duties and taxes on various imported goods. The GRA in a statement said the measure is intended to provide relief so that the benefits can be passed on to the consumers. The Revenue Collection Agency said the measures are not intended for importers to evade taxes, and therefore importers will face the consequences if any tax evasion is found. The GRA said should unscrupulous importers seek to manipulate the system for tax evasion, they will be penalized in accordance with existing legislation. In this regard, the Central Revenue Protection Unit, Post-Clearance Audit Unit, and Law Enforcement and Investigations Division, driven by a risk management system, will verify the accuracy and authenticity of declared particulars and taxes paid in keeping with the law. Additionally, the GRA said those importers who are found to be not following the guidelines will be subjected to additional taxes, fines, and penalties, and 6 months imprisonment, and the possible removal of the relief being granted under the measure. The GRA said the relief takes effect for a period of 6 months, beginning on the 1st of August and running until the 31st of January next year. President Ali announced the measure this week with the hope of it easing the costs attached to shipping and the prices being paid by consumers in the marketplaces. On the police blotter, there has been no arrest as the police continue their probe in the Tuesday night's execution-style murder of Brazilian businessman Euclid da Silva. CCTV video recordings of the execution were made public yesterday. The recordings showed two men exiting the back of a white car that pulled up behind the Silva's pickup and immediately opening fire on the two sides of the man's vehicle. The businessman was shot dead, while another man who was in the car with him was badly injured and left in a critical condition. The gunmen were seen going back to the car and speeding off from the scene. Police investigators are reviewing several pieces of video evidence from the shooting, and they're also working on a number of theories that are suspected to be behind the killing. A decade ago, the murdered Brazilian man was charged for fraud and handed over to the Brazilian authorities since he was identified as a suspected Brazilian drug dealer and prison escapee. A few years later, the man re-emerged in Guyana and was charged again for fraud and conspiracy. His trial went on for almost 2 years before he was released after the magistrate found that the evidence against him was insufficient. Investigators are continuing their probe of the murder.
It's one of your biggest goals, getting your own home, where memories are made, where happiness lives. You may feel that home ownership or renovation is beyond your reach, but we at Republic want you to know that there's always a way. Ask us about our suite of mortgages. Let's help make your housing wishes come true. Or advise on how the equity in your existing home can finance other dreams and goals. Call or go online to learn more.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100.
We are legions of men standing strong, but never too proud to stoop and help someone. We must send a clear signal to all. Do right, walk in upright ways, knowing that's what being a man is all about. And ever aware that things will only get worse when good men do nothing. Stand strong, be the one to live right.
What's our purpose? Together we rise. For our community, our customer, and our country. Our promises: strengthen our community, reliably connect our customers, innovate for all in our country. Together we rise.
Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guy Oil Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
Across the region tonight, the new Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philippe Pierre, has rolled out new COVID-19 measures, including a curfew, amid a significant spike in cases. Even as he's also announced that his administration would no longer treat the breaking of protocols attached to COVID-19 as a criminal offense. In an address to the nation, the Prime Minister said persons who have been previously arrested, charged and convicted for COVID-19 protocol breaches will have their records expunged. He said for now they need to persuade and encourage citizens to comply with the protocol guidelines, not threaten and punish them to do so. He said he understands that for many, they have been called to do what does not come naturally, and so there must be compassion and empathy. New protocols take effect from Friday and will run until the end of August, as the government tries to significantly reduce and control the spread of COVID-19. The Prime Minister of St. Lucia said that measures for the 2.5-week period include a curfew beginning at 9 p.m. and 8 p.m. end to all business operations and commercial activity, and the restriction on social gatherings to immediate family and household members to a limit of 10 individuals. Nation News in Barbados reports tonight that the Barbados-based Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum says that though the majority of the Caribbean region experienced above normal rainfall in June, drought conditions are emerging in some parts of the region, particularly in the Bahamas and parts of the Eastern Caribbean. In its August bulletin, the organization said that the drought situation is also affecting the Guyanas and Belize. It said in the Bahamas, concerns over short and long-term drought, in particular, exists by the end of October and November, respectively. However, parts of the Eastern Caribbean and the Guyanas, along with Belize, should closely monitor their groundwater, the officials said. The organization noted that in Antigua and Barbuda, although June was the wettest month so far on the island for the year, drought conditions have been continuing. June has become the only month of the year thus far to clock over 2 inches of rain in that island. And finally tonight, international news. Authorities in North Germany have asked more than 8,000 people to repeat COVID vaccinations because a nurse there is suspected of having injected saline instead of vaccine in many cases. Police are investigating the nurse's actions at the vaccination center in Germany. Initially, just 6 people were believed to have received the harmless salt solution in March and April. Many of those affected were aged over 70, a high-risk group in the pandemic. A police official in Germany was quoted as saying that a 40-year-old nurse had been sharing corona-critical information on social media and criticizing the German government's restrictions aimed at curbing the virus's spread. A regional broadcaster said 8,557 people have been asked to go back for repeat vaccinations, and so far, about 3,600 new appointments have confirmed. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.